Well, hey, it's Matt Steen, co-founder of Chemistry Staffing, and this is another chemistry conversation. And today, excited to be joined by Dan Navarra. So Dan is a member of the chemistry team, has about a zillion years of ministry experience. And one of the cool things that he's done through the years has been to do a salary survey for youth pastors, just to kind of get a sense of what youth pastors are making and to serve as a great tool for youth pastors as they're trying to figure out their compensation plans and all that kind of thing. And so, Dan, thanks for taking some time to talk, man.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah. Always love having Dan time. So dude, tell me, you're working with a bunch of churches. You are gearing up for the next round of the salary survey. So you're hearing a whole bunch of things from a whole bunch of people. What are you learning about the church right now?
As everybody said, and I'm going to echo it, everything's changed in the last 18 months or so as we figure out COVID. And I'm out here on the West Coast. Things have especially changed in California and on the West Coast, where lockdown mandates are a little bit different than they are in some of the other states. And then wage increases and things like that are sneaking up on churches fast. Yeah. And, Sunday's always coming, I like to say. And so churches are getting caught not realizing, holy smokes, we needed to plan differently in our budget year. And so there's a lot of that's happening. And, it's a weird time in the church, and we're seeing it flushed out and transitions happening everywhere.
Oh yeah, transitions are crazy this year, and it's transitions to new churches, transitions to new career fields, transitions out of ministry. It's all sorts of transition. So you mentioned something there that I want to touch on. And this is one of those things that's probably on the horizon that the churches need to be thinking about. But talk to me a little bit about what you said about salary increases kind of creeping up on people and catching them unawares.
Yeah, so wage increases are happening for minimum wage employees across our country right now. States one at a time are moving past the federal minimum wage minimums. And then there's salary minimums that are also being affected by that. And they're being affected differently in different states. So like in California, for instance, which is an outlier, but nonetheless, as California goes, so a lot of the country goes. To be salary exempt from overtime, you need to make double minimum wage over a 40-hour work week. And as minimum wage increases to $14 and $15 an hour in the next few years, that means you're gonna have to pay a youth pastor or any other pastor $30 an hour over a 40-hour work week. That's $62,000 a year to keep them exempt from paying overtime wage, which is time and a half. So it's complicated, and it's sneaking up on people because the wage increases are happening so fast.
Yeah. So let's go back to that real quick. So you said 62,000 a year. Is that 2021, or when does that take effect in California?
Yeah. So it depends on the size of your church. Organizations that have 24 or less employees are a year behind larger churches. So if you're a larger church, 25 or more employees. And by the way, that counts preschool staff if it's one 501c3. That's an important thing for a lot of churches to understand. If you have more than 25 employees, your escalation schedule is a year ahead of everybody else. And so by 2020, well, I guess it'd be 23, you have to be at $15 an hour for minimum wage for your employees, which means $30 an hour minimum salary wage for your employees. And, it wasn't too long ago in California, it was $10 an hour minimum wage. Right. Double that was $20 an hour. But you're talking about going from 20 to 30. That's a 33% increase just to get into entry level.
In a short period of time. And so we'll have churches from California that'll come to us and say, hey, we want to pay somebody 45 grand a year. And the conversation typically becomes, well, if you do that, you need to do it hourly. And, if that even works out with minimum wage. But the thing that churches don't necessarily think about is, somebody goes on a retreat, you're paying overtime for the vast majority of that. And that starts to escalate even quicker. So as churches, this is, we're talking in September. This is kind of in that end run, we're seeing budgeting season come up for many of our churches that are on the January to December cycle. What would you say to executive pastors, lead pastors, people that are doing their budget? What advice are you going to give them right now as they to think through this?
I think it's critically important that you're aware of your state's wage laws.
Mhm.
And not a lot of churches are, in my experience.
Mhm.
And so, because they're all changing and they're changing quick,
Mhm.
including, the federal salary minimum. There's been conversation about that moving for a long time. It hasn't budged in years. And
Mhm.
so you just need to stay on top of those things so that when the calendar rolls over, because no matter what your fiscal calendar is, January 1 is the IRS calendar.
Right.
You need to be prepared for whatever wage increases are coming for your state come January 1, and being
Yeah.
able to get that approved by your elders and all those things in advance of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And that's one of those things that, that's one of the joys of being an executive pastor, is having to kind of be up on all that kind of stuff, and be able to just kind of keep aware of
Yeah.
what those minimum wages are.
Let me say one more thing about that real quick, because there's a phrase that's foreign to a lot of churches that I think will help them in this time if they're looking for help from people who are maybe on their church board or their finance team that have business world acumen. It's payroll banding. The idea that we're looking at not just our minimum level, employees who set up chairs or whatever they do for, $13 an hour or whatever your minimum wage is, but you're actually looking at, when I raise this salary because of wage increases over here, what does that mean to the equitability of the rest of my staff? That's a complicated question. And, we can always help out with that as well, but it's really helpful to understand payroll banding for your organization.
Yeah. And to be clear, the payroll banding, what you're talking about is you have your senior level pay band that's a range from this to that, and you have different quadrants that different qualifications will qualify for, and so you need to work that for all levels of your church's salaried employees, and even your hourly employees as well. So
Yep.
so that's brilliant. We can definitely help churches kind of think through that. So going back to to some of the salary conversation, I mean, you're gearing up to do the youth pastor compensation survey again. I mean, it's just getting ready to roll, and we've got some information down below this on where to take part of that. Tell me what you're watching through the years, because you've done this. What is this? What year is it? This is five. Yeah. So over 5 years, you've seen some changes. What trends are you seeing, and what gets you excited? What gets you nervous?
Yeah. So the first trend I'll say is the average is going up every single year by at least 2%.
But that sounds like that's by necessity.
It really truly is. But for every person who's getting a 2 or 4 or 5% raise, there's somebody who hasn't seen a raise in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And that's an unfortunate thing that people, there's never enough money to go around. So that's one thing. Like, the number is moving up every single year for paying youth pastors. Another thing we're seeing is the vast majority of youth pastors, and this is a huge departure from a decade or two ago, the vast majority, and I'm talking over 80%, have at least a 4-year degree, if not graduate work. 35% of the youth pastors that are taking my survey, and I've surveyed over 5,000 of them, they have a master's.
Wow.
And so we're seeing the bar on professionalism really raised among the youth pastor community. That wasn't necessarily a requirement to be a youth pastor not too long ago. But now, just to get your foot in the door, you really have to have some qualifications on paper.
Oh yeah. And this is a season now. I mean, even and I'm excited to see how this kind of fleshes out over the course of this year's survey. I mean, some of what we've been talking about anecdotally is so much of the youth ministry pool seems to have gotten younger over the last six or 8 months. And so that seems like there's a qualification drain going, but churches are still expecting the degree and the experience and all of that. So it's a fascinating time to be in youth ministry, especially if you're well qualified, right?
It really is. And I think what a lot of youth pastors are learning is they're being underpaid as youth pastors, but they're qualified for more than that. And so they're jumping ship, which is why the vast majority of youth pastors that take the survey have been in youth ministry 6 or less years, and they've got a college degree. They're getting to that magic place where they can go do another ministry in the church because they qualified themselves for it. And I think that's different than it was not too long ago.
Yeah. It's going back to what you said initially. Everything's changed,
It really has.
In 18 months or however long it's been. I mean, everything really has changed over the course of this season. So Dan, excited by the work that you're doing here at Chemistry, excited with the churches that you're getting to serve. Love what you're doing as far as the survey goes, and really looking forward to those efforts. Before we wrap up, I mean, what word of wisdom would you pass along to people that are watching this today? What encouragement would you give, especially to some of the youth pastors that might be feeling, feeling the economic pinch?
Yeah. My word of advice to youth pastors is always the same. God has called you where you are. But that doesn't mean he's called you there forever. And so just understanding, what the job landscape looks like in your area, or an area you're deciding to, feeling like God is moving you to. There's a lot of resources and help out there right now to help you understand. And I don't mean, when I say value, I don't mean God's value of you, quote unquote. Right. I mean the value that your position's worth on the market. So there's a lot of help for you on that out there. That's awesome.
Dan, thank you. People want to get a hold of you. It's Dan and Navarra, and that's Navarra, and we'll list that down below at chemistrystaffing.com. We'll also drop in a link to get on Dan's calendar and spend some time kind of talking through, your next youth pastor search with him. So Dan, thanks for the time, man.
Hey, happy to help. Thanks a lot, guys.